I'm Marie Rossi, and I'm an encaustic artist. And what encaustic artist means is that I paint with hot wax. I have a show coming up at the IMAGO Gallery, which opens on the 21st, and you're coming to take a tour of me and my gallery at Cutler Mills. This is my art tableau, because in addition to being an artist, I'm also an avid kayaker. And oftentimes when I'm kayaking, I find things from nature that just strike me as something I might want to draw or might want to use in my artwork. And when I say use, it's what biomimicry is all about. It's either being inspired by it, and so I use the colors or the feeling I get when I look at these items, or I might use the lines in an abstract piece, such as the curve on this crab that I found on Barrington Beach, or it might be these beautiful curly lines in this fish head that I found in Warren. Or sometimes I might actually use the actual piece. So I might take some of this sea glass and use it in an actual piece of encaustic where I would embed it into the actual wax. Well, you might think, what is encaustic art if you've never seen it before? And encaustic art is painting with liquid hot wax. Some people think that this is some newfangled kind of abstract art or mixed media. And in fact, it's not. It's dated back to the Egyptians when they used it on the tombs. How you start with encaustic wax is you need a firm surface because otherwise the wax will crack, right? If you put it on paper, it needs a porous surface so that the wax can attach to it. And basically any board is the best surface to use to paint with encaustic wax. This board I prepared, which is a plain wood board that I put encaustic medium on, which is wax and dama varnish. And that's a great surface for doing the next part, which is adding color or actually embedding something into the wax. So we've gone from a board with just clear wax, which as you can see the wax is very translucent, which means you can see through it, to this piece which is halfway done. These are jellyfish, if you can't tell. And this has many, many, many layers of wax. And what it is each layer I put different color and create an atmosphere of depth. Right now I'm working on the jellyfish piece, and I noticed that I didn't quite like the curve of the third jellyfish, so I'm scraping back the wax with the razor blade. I use the razor blade a lot to change the curve of this jellyfish. So actually you're carving right into this wax with color. It's basically wax with pigment. It's the same pigment you'd use in oil painting, but it doesn't have the same oil base as oil paints. This has dama varnish in it. And I like the composition with a little bit more curve this way to the jellyfish. This is called an encaustic palette, and it's basically steel on a hot plate, and it's keeping the wax in a liquid form, because as soon as the wax comes out of this, off of this heat, it solidifies right away. What you're seeing is plain beeswax with dama varnish and pigment. And I will take my brush and put it into the hot wax and put it on a piece like this. And that's what's called painting with hot wax. The piece that I'm working on now is a piece about single-cell organisms. And right now, if you can see, there's some organisms underneath this wax. And I'm going to now put some additional single-cell organisms on the surface of this by incising lines. And to incise lines, you take whatever tool you happen to like. And what I'm doing is dipping this in soy wax, because that's the only way that you can clean these tools, is to melt the wax off. And I'm incising this. So basically what you do is you carve out the wax in the shape that you want it to be, and you wipe away the excess with another tool. I'm using, again, my trusty razor blade. And the reason I'm doing this is because you want a pretty flat surface when you fill in the lines. And you actually fill in the lines with more wax, or you could fill it in with a paint stick or with oil paint. But oil paint is not a good medium to work with because it is not transparent for the most part. It has its own type of oil, which doesn't mix well with the Damar varnish, which is in the Encaustic paint. I take a color, and here I am using a green color, and I put this, oh, there's a paintbrush upside down. I put the wax right inside the lines that I have carved out. So now, as I said, I'm scraping it back in order to preserve just the line. I'm going to add a little bit of a complementary color of red. Same thing I'm going to do here. And then I'm going to take this clear wax, put a coat over this so I don't lose it. This piece, entitled Kinetic Energy, is a mixed media piece in which I used shellac to set it on fire, which created these wonderful patterns. I also used fabric and metal, and the fabric and the metal together can create that sense of energy that's in all of us. This piece is another mixed media piece in which I used ink, encaustic, charcoal, salt, and what I did was I set the salt and the charcoal on fire by using clear shellac, and that created all these very interesting shapes. It almost looks like a phosphorescent object. It's supposed to be, I hope you feel the sense of transparency and organicness in this ostensibly a tree. So what I'm doing with this piece is I have laid down some a watercolor painting on a clear piece of wood, and then I have added some alcohol inks on top with some shellac, and I'm going to set it on fire. And the reason I'm doing that is because you get a very organic, very organic shapes, and you'll see it in a couple of the pieces that I will have in the show. And then what I'm going to do after that is set it on fire again with some coarse salt. And what I'm doing is creating texture along with the very pretty organic shapes. So here we go. I advise you not to try this at home because I have a fire extinguisher here as well as a pail of sand. And you can blow this out at any point that you want. I kind of like to leave a center. This piece was inspired by the veins in the body, the veins in the tree, the way we are all connected to each other. And how I created it was by, again, using many layers of wax. I used many different colors, primarily yellow, white, pink, purple, maroon colors. And I carved out wax at all the different levels and then filled it up again to smooth it out, and then I carved in these veins into the wax. What we haven't talked about before is that most of my work, in addition to being inspired by nature, is also inspired by my unconscious. So I work from the images that I get from my sleep and my waking hours, the images that flow into my head. What I've learned from this particular series is how connected I am to nature and how much it enlivens my life. And what I hope to do in the future is more exploration of those connections, playing with opacity and transparency, playing with doing underpaintings in oil with some cold wax, which is a whole different technique. I'm still trying to see transparent layers between inanimate and animate objects and how we're all connected through the life energy that surrounds us.